Hello and welcome to the Career Choice Series webinar on academia and becoming a dean. The Career Choice Series is designed to give law students, young lawyers, and transitioning attorneys a general overview of a legal career path and ways to position yourself to get there. The Career Choice Series is brought to you by the ABA Career Center, Law Student Division, and the Young Lawyers Division. The Young Lawyers Division is here to help new lawyers navigate the early years of their career and law students prepare for life after law school. The Law Student Division offers premium benefits, which includes access and savings for Quimby.com, discounts on bar review programs, up to $50 off West Academic casebooks, and a legal ethics bundle that includes free model rules of professional conduct ebook. Upgrade to premium for $25. Sign up today at abaforlawstudents.com/go-premium. The ABA Career Center offers both career development resources and a job board for law students and legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages. Today, moderating the discussion is me. My name is Lexi Heineman, and I am the Program Associate for the ABA Career Center and also the Senior Lawyers Division. And it is a great honor to introduce today's speakers. To begin, we have with us Dean Danielle Holley-Walker. She is the Dean and Professor of Law at Howard University School of Law. Dean Holley-Walker earned a BA from Yale University and her JD from Harvard University. Prior to joining the Howard faculty, she was the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Distinguished Professor of Law at the University of South Carolina. Dean Holley-Walker teaches civil procedure, administrative law, legislation and regulation, federal courts, and inequality in education. Her ongoing research agenda deals with the governance of public schools and diversity in the legal profession. She has published articles on issues of civil rights and education, including recent articles on No Child Left Behind, charter school policy, desegregation plans, and affirmative action in higher education. Dean Holley-Walker has served as the chair of the board of directors of the South Carolina HIV/AIDS Council. She is also a Liberty Fellow through the Aspen Global Leadership Network, and currently she serves on the board of the Middle School for Math and Science in Washington, D.C. She is also on the board of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. Our other panelist joining us is Dean Michael Hunter Schwartz. He is the 10th Dean of the University of Pacific's McGeorge School of Law. He previously served as Dean and Professor of Law at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock Bowen School of Law. Dean Schwartz is a leading national expert on teaching and learning law. He is the author of 10 books, 7 law review papers, 3 book chapters, and 8 shorter works addressing a wide variety of teaching, learning, and curriculum design topics. Dean Schwartz has delivered more than 200 professional presentations about law school teaching, including conducting training programs for law professors at dozens of law schools throughout the U.S. and from Germany, the Republic of Georgia, Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, and Chile. Dean Schwartz is the chair of the American Association of Law Schools section for deans and a consultant to the Institute for Law Teaching and Learning, and a member of the board advisors for a national legal publisher and 2 peer-reviewed law reviews. So with all that being said, there's a lot to get into today. So let's start with our speakers and getting an overview of their career practice. So let's start with Dean Holley-Walker. Could you tell us a little bit about what exactly a dean does?
Hi, thank you, Lexi. So a dean really is, if you think of a dean as the chief executive officer of a law school. And so basically we do everything from, in terms of bigger vision, leading the strategic plan of the law school and having an opportunity with our faculty colleagues and alumni, students, and other stakeholders to really talk about what the bigger vision is for the law school. Then moving down to day-to-day operations, one of the biggest being working with university administration, president, provost, chief financial officers of the university to plan a budget for the law school and making sure that the budget is on time and really comes in under or at budget. We also help to supervise the faculty, and so we are members of the faculty, and we also help to supervise all faculty matters, including overseeing tenure and promotion matters, hiring for faculty, and also the delivery of the curriculum. One of the other roles of a dean in a law school is to make sure we are in compliance with all of our accreditations. So whether that be accreditation by the ABA, or if we have an additional accreditation by the American Association of Law Schools, the AALS. With staff, we oversee the staff of the law school, and so that can be everything from library to administrative assistants to people who are the director of student affairs or career services, et cetera. And then with students, we have a role in making sure that students get, of course, everything that they need in law school, and that may include hearing student complaints or student issues, but also trying to make sure that students get the best delivery of the legal program that they can. And then we have a huge responsibility with alumni, including involving alumni in fundraising and also just supporting the law school.
And Dean Hunter Schwartz? Oh, we can't hear you. Gotta unmute. There we go.
In addition to everything that Dean Holley-Walker said, I would just chime in and add the critical role that we play in managing people. So it's a leadership position on a day-to-day basis. We deal with people issues from the people who work at the law school, whether faculty or staff, but also people issues in terms of our students, in terms of collaborating with other units of our university. So it's very much a people management job, and I think Dean Holley-Walker is exactly right. It's a managing a business that's probably like a $10-20 million, $30 million business, and she's exactly right that we are accountable for managing our budgets. We have to become experts in budget management. We have to craft strategy for the long-term success of the law school. And I put in my notes when I was thinking about this today, 2 exclamation marks near fundraising, because that's certainly a critical role that we play. But it's also, as Dean Holley-Walker suggested, critical that we also build alumni relations, support our alumni in achieving their goals as well.
So it certainly sounds like both of you have quite a lot on your plate at any given time, and it might have taken a couple of career steps to make it to where you are. So our next sort of question is about your individual career paths and how you got to where you are. So let's start with Dean Hunter Schwartz.
So almost all my good career experiences started with my wife making fun of me. And so I went into legal education because she knew that after 2 months of law school, I was telling her that I wanted to be a law professor, which is a ridiculous thing to say, actually, with hindsight. But it's really what I wanted. And she saw an ad in our local newspaper, and that our local law school was interviewing. She dared me to follow that dream. So I did. Got 3 interviews. Got 1 second interview. Completely choked during that interview by writing on the projection screen that my slides were projecting onto, because I lost my rhythm. I was writing on an overhead thing, and nevertheless got the job anyway. After I started writing about teaching and learning in law school, she again sort of said, well, you're writing all these things about what needs to happen with legal education, but you're not actually doing anything about it. And she was wanting me to think about applying for a job as a dean. And eventually that is what I did. And so I was dean at University of Arkansas Little Rock Bowen School of Law for 4 years. And then I received the weirdest call in the universe. The person who holds the title of publisher for the largest legal publisher in the United States called me on the phone and told me that I had to apply for the deanship at McGeorge. And so that's the path that led me ultimately to become the dean at McGeorge.
And what about you, Dean Holley-Walker? What was kind of the overview for you?
So I have a similar story in the sense that in law school, I said that I wanted to become a law professor, which is, again, a very unusual and pretty high goal for a law student. But I knew from very early on that I wanted to be a law professor. When I came out of law school, I clerked on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and then I went into private practice. I was a litigator, did antitrust and securities litigation work, but very shortly into my career, I did go into teaching. I applied through the general kind of AALS process did lots of interviews, and ended up choosing a school mostly because I wanted to be in New York, thought that that would be a fun place to live. So, kind of by happenstance. And then I got married, and my husband is from South Carolina. And so I ended up moving down to the University of South Carolina, and I taught there for 9 years and eventually became the associate dean. When I was hired as associate dean, my dean at the time said that he really wanted to have an associate dean who wanted to go on to be a dean. And he really was a fantastic mentor for me and really helped to prepare and push me towards where I am now. And I ended up applying for the deanship at Howard shortly after I became associate dean at University of South Carolina. So that's how I ended up here. And I had a colleague at South Carolina who had previously taught at Howard who really encouraged me to apply for the deanship here.
Wow, it sounds like you guys had a lot of support and encouragement to get to where you are, and that's really exciting to hear. And then moving forward, so now you're in the role of a dean. So what does a day in the life of a dean look like? So for example, what's on your to-do list for today? So let's go back to, let's go back to Dean Hunter Schwartz.
Oh, okay. I actually, weirdly, in thinking about this question, thought about it in terms of percentages. So I'd say about 30% of what I do is sort of desk work, dealing with memos, responding to emails, those writing reports for the university, things like that. About 40% is scheduled meetings, and about 30% I never imagined happening when I woke up that morning, but I have to deal with things. And that percentage sometimes shifts, and it sometimes becomes 90% things I did not imagine doing that particular day. And so it's lots about people. It's a lot about collaborating with the faculty to craft a vision for the school. It's a ton about students and making sure we're delivering a really high quality educational experience for our students. And what's fabulous about it, every day is completely different.
And what about you, Dean Holley-Walker? What's on
I
your agenda?
I completely agree with that. I'm glad that Dean Schwartz actually put it into percentages because that sounded about the same as my day. I do teach. So this morning, for example, I was teaching my course in legislation and regulation. So I typically teach once a year. So I would say I spend certain percentage of time doing that. Usually during the fall semester is when I teach. I spend a certain percentage of time working with people on the main campus. So Howard is actually on two campuses. And so, being in meetings with the provost or an associate provost or with the president of the university. So definitely, usually part of my day has to do with interacting with university administration. I have an open door policy. So I invite faculty, staff, and students to come into my office anytime my door is open and I'm not in a scheduled meeting. So there always are lots of unexpected meetings. I just had 2 students in my office before we started this phone call. So I definitely spend time every day interacting with students. And then I spend time every day interacting with faculty. For example, we just started a new civil rights center, the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center. And I've spent a lot of time this summer getting that center up and running. So working with our new director and hiring additional staff for that center. So every day, as Dean Schwartz said, is really people. It's a people-centered job, whether it's students, faculty, or staff. I spend most of my time in meetings. I will say that my nephews, who are 12 and 15, spent the day with me when they were about 8 and 10. And the 8-year-old afterwards said, "Your job is all day just talking to people. You listen, and then you give an answer, and the next group of people come in." And so that does seem like a lot of the day. He really boiled it down right to the essence, is really listening and thinking about how it impacts the law school and the university, and then getting back to people, whether it be email, phone, or in person, but a lot of communication work.
Yeah, that sounds ideal if you're a people person, and being that involved with your community is amazing to be. So kind of going past just the day-to-day things in your life. So with your respective positions, what are some things that really excite you about it and that you love about what you do? And then what are some challenges that you face? And we'll start again with you, Dean Holley-Walker.
The thing that I love about my job is the whole reason I got into teaching is I love the profession. I love the legal profession. My father's a law professor, and I was raised around the law school and around lots of lawyers. And I really love the profession and wanted to be involved in having the ability to influence and impact a lot of young lawyers and for them to see this profession as something positive and where we can make a positive change on the world. And that has been my biggest kind of really positive impact that I've had from being in the profession. I have had so many students who've gone on to graduate and do amazing things. And when one of them comes to me and says, you were even 1% of an influence on what they do now, it is kind of something that makes me wake up every day excited to go to work. I love being at a mission university like Howard University of South Carolina was a mission university where we had a very clear idea of what we should be doing and the kinds of lawyers we should be graduating. And that also feels good to be able to contribute to the profession in that way. The challenges are immense, I think, in this atmosphere. Obviously, legal education has faced a huge change in terms of number of applicants, but also really explaining how what we do in law school connects to what's happening in the profession and explaining to people why it is still an excellent choice to make the choice to go to law school and that this is a just indispensable profession, one that really drives, I think, in a positive way, positive outcomes in our society. And so to me, that those are the challenges is I think about when I got into teaching in 2002, no one ever asked me, why did you choose to be a lawyer? Why do you teach in law schools? And now it's something that we hear all the time. And you really have to be able to go back to basics and talk about the positive aspects of our profession.
And then Dean Schwartz, you're nodding, so let's hear what your thoughts are on your day.
I want to start with something that Dean Holley-Walker started on also, which is on my worst day, I'm in a building and on a campus filled with really smart people who are excited to learn. It really is a joy to be in front of students, and I'm going to be teaching next semester myself. And it's because they really are here because they're passionate about making a difference in the world, and it's inspiring to be around students who really come to law school. And my experience is that almost all of them come to law school to make a difference in the world, in their own lives, for their families, and that's fabulous. There's never a bad day to be around students who are excited about where they are. And I take great joy in my faculty and administrative colleagues. They are really such smart, creative people. I learn so much every day. It's an astounding thing. When I first became a dean, it didn't occur to me that I would be in such a constant state of getting to learn and try to be a best version of myself. I love the creativity of being a dean. I think there's a lot of joy in trying to find creative solutions for challenges and the problem solving part of it. And I do think you alluded to we need to be people to do the job, and definitely. And so I like the interaction with people overall. I also would say that the people are also one of the biggest challenges. That the things that sometimes can derail my day is a student who's really going through a really tough experience, or a faculty colleague or a staff member who's really going through a tough experience. I think Dean Holley-Walker is dead on right that one of the biggest challenges as a dean of a law school is, staying ahead of the curve in a field that's rapidly changing, the legal profession, and a marketplace, law students, that's rapidly changing. And so really sort of having to be constantly thinking about how we can do it better. What do our students need to learn? How can we best position them to be great legal practitioners? Really, I'm thinking about that, constantly. I can't even get away from it in the shower. And then I guess there's probably a little bit of a challenge or an interesting thing of navigating being both a good university citizen and a good advocate for my unit within that university system. That's a balance, I think, that all deans in all colleges have to navigate.
Wonderful. Thank you both for going into depth on that. And so you've said a lot about what you do, so now let's talk about addressed for someone that's thinking about doing what you're currently doing. So, what are some skills that it would take to position someone to get to where you are? Like, what skills are essential to being a dean? Dean Hunter Schwartz, what do you have to say? What about that?
So my top three, although of course, you tell a lawyer three, they sort of have three, but there's more ideas than three actually that they're going to express. So my first one is people skills, listening, empathy, willingness to admit when you make a mistake. I think the second big category is sort of humility, lack of an ego, comfort in one's own skin. Because if you're doing your job well, there's no way that you can please everyone, make everyone happy. You have to live with, doing what you think is right for the institution and for the people that you work with, your faculty colleagues and the staff and the students. And so you have to be sort of also comfortable saying, I know this is bad for you individual, but it's best for the overall institution, or it's best for you in the longer run as I see it. And then, as I alluded to in my answer to the last question, I think openness to learning and to other people's ideas. That's some of the most exciting things that we've done, both at my prior law school and now at McGeorge. Were not things I brought to the table, but were ideas that my faculty colleagues had, that my staff colleagues had, that students have brought to me. Actually, we had a great thing this year that students brought to us. They wanted a Center for Inclusion and Diversity to be embedded in the law school. They convinced me and we made it happen. So I really do think it's that willingness to learn and hear other people's ideas.
And then Dean Holley-Walker.
First, I want to say I strongly agree with all of the three skills that Dean Schwartz just said. I think that all of those, especially, I love his emphasis on this ability to really have a lot of humility, be willing to listen. And I think also, I think humility helps with this idea that as academic leaders, we are often, especially in the age of social media, I think we are subjected to a lot of public criticism at times, and you have to be able to divorce, I think, personal feelings from that. Or if you can't do that, to realize that people take their education, especially their legal education, very seriously, and for that reason sometimes we become the center of a lot of criticism, and you have to be willing to take a lot of that on without taking it personally, which is a very difficult thing to do. And so I strongly agree with all of the skills that Dean Schwartz named. I would add to that list, I think, obviously strong communication skills, both written and verbal communication skills. The need to be able, for example, to convey to university officials who may be weighing lots of different priorities for the university. So does the law school get more money than the business school this year? Do we get to hire 5 people and engineering only gets to hire 3 people? So that ability to be able to communicate both with people above, and that way deans are very much middle managers. We have to communicate with people above us, and then also people who are really impacted by us. So as deans, we may be expected to go to a town hall meeting with a lot of students who are very upset or angry about something, and be able to talk to them in a very compassionate way about whatever is going on at the law school or at the university that they are upset about. I think also having that ability to do that with obviously our faculty colleagues and then alumni. So I would say strong communication skills are key. The other skill that I would add is the ability to be able to establish a strong foundation in the beginning of your career, which a lot of it has to do with establishing a strong scholarly agenda. So as deans, we are also scholars, and if you are lucky enough, like Dean Schwartz, to have a really strong background in legal education and legal curriculum and teaching and writing about pedagogy. For me, I happen to write about education and civil rights, but I think you are a stronger leader as a dean if people have an idea that you have immersed yourself in your legal scholarship. And so I think scholarship and the ability to do high quality legal scholarship is something that is very helpful for a dean.
It's really interesting listening to you both sort of illustrate these conceptions of a dean that I never really even knew, and I found it surprising. And our next question deals with what are people surprised to know about being a professor of law and a dean? Like I think you covered a little bit about the teaching aspect to it as a bit of a surprise, and most people don't really know. But what would you say, when we'll start with you, Dean Holley-Walker, is something that people would be surprised to know about what you do and the practice?
I think people would be surprised at how fun this job really is. I think teaching, when I was with my students this morning, it's really enjoyable. I think, especially over time, to really see how your teaching evolves and also how students react to that teaching. I think being a dean is a lot more. I think this need to learn new skill sets. So it's not the same skill set that you use probably when you were practicing law or when you were on faculty. So the ability to learn university budgets, to be able to learn HR, which was a huge part for me of when I was associate dean and now dean, being able to learn all of the HR nuances that happen when you're managing people. So that, I think the notion that this, for me, I feel like it's a third career for me, that I was a practicing lawyer, then I was a legal academic, and now, I'm an academic leader that requires a completely different skill set or a group of skill sets in some ways. So that to me is probably the biggest surprise. But I think most people expect that our jobs are kind of boring, and they really are not. I find it a lot of fun and very interesting on most days.
Wonderful, thank you. And what about you, Dean Hunter Schwartz?
Awesome answer, Dean Holley-Walker. It's fabulous and right to my experience. I guess my other two surprises, as a faculty member, I somehow thought, and sometimes think there's a general perception that faculty members, write their notes once and then pull out the old, tattered yellow page notes, and just go through them over and over again, and how much it really is a continuous improvement process, and how hard my faculty colleagues work. And then how much even harder and how many hours more I work as a dean, I think might be a surprise. And I guess the only other one I would add is, I've been surprised at the number and indeterminacy of the decisions I have to make every day. It's really, I'm always amazed, like, there isn't a rule book. You make your best guess looking at everything you can, and the one thing is certain is you're going to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
That totally ties back into the part about being humble and able to maintain and take criticism. So thank you both for really sharing your perspective on that. And as we kind of approach the end of our program, so we'll transition and bring it back. And how has the ABA involvement or being involved with the ABA helped assist you in getting to where you are? We can start with Dean Hunter Schwartz.
So two things occur to me. One is it was really helpful to me as I moved into my dean role to have been on ABA site inspection teams, to have had a chance to visit other law schools, to work with both other legal education professionals, but also the teams always have a practitioner on them, to have that experience and learn about how other things are done at other law schools. It's very easy to kind of get caught in the silo of your own institution. And then secondly, my sense of where legal education is going is that the more we bring practitioners into our law schools, the better off our students are going to be. And so that ability to connect with the ABA and the huge body of practitioners throughout the country is a really critical thing for our students' best interests.
Wonderful, thank you. And Dean Holley-Walker.
For me, it was great having University of South Carolina. Obviously, we had William Hubbard, who is a graduate of University of South Carolina. He was president of the ABA. And then I also have gotten to know Paulette Brown, who's a past president, very well. And hearing them talk about, I think, all of the initiatives that the ABA does in terms of especially providing legal services to people who are in need was one of the things I think that has really influenced kind of my emphasis with students on very early on getting involved in the ABA and also being able to provide service in their communities. And I think that the ABA has really stood for that quite a bit. And I think it is one of the places where we think about our role as lawyers in the broader society more, and especially in terms of rule of law and being able to protect marginalized communities in our country. And so I've really enjoyed being able to hear the different platforms of the ABA presidents and see how they are working to expand the kind of positive view of lawyers in society. And then I think finally is being able to see students and recent graduates get involved in Young Lawyers Division, and how important Young Lawyers Division can be for the advancement of their careers, I think has been just a huge kind of learning curve and learning touch point for me to see how much that can really expand a young lawyer's career getting involved in their bar associations, both at the state level and also at the ABA level. So I think the ABA is doing a great job, especially the Young Lawyers Division of the ABA, I think has been doing a great job in kind of demonstrating how being involved in bar associations can really help impact and improve the lives of all lawyers, but especially I think of young lawyers.
Thank you very much for your answers. And so we're nearing the end of our time, and I want to make sure we can answer a couple questions. So I'll start with this one that was submitted. So what advice do you have for a student who wants to pursue teaching and eventually become a dean? So what's some quick advice you would give, Dean Holley-Walker?
I think, there is a very traditional path to law teaching. And so it's important to be aware of that path. Doesn't mean you can't do it in other ways, but I think it's important to be aware of it. One of the first steps is typically clerking. And then also, there are lots of teaching fellowships now, these visiting assistant professor programs that exist at many schools. So be aware that those are two steps that you may want to take. I would strongly encourage anyone who's interested in academia and wants to be a dean to really work on their legal scholarship while they're in law school. So if you're assigned a third year paper or graduation paper, that's your really first step. That was the first thing I ever published was my third year paper was published. And that was what I used as my talk when I went on the market for law teaching. So I think it starts right now. And so think about really having a track record of legal scholarship before you apply. Definitely try to clerk and maybe do a fellowship. Those are the three things that are stepping stones. In terms of becoming a dean, once you get on a law faculty, don't shy away from service. So often you'll be thinking about teaching and scholarship. And the thing that led me into administration was my work as the chair of a curriculum committee, which was a job that I think not a lot of people wanted, but eventually you will need to do that work if you are going to become an academic leader. Leading committees and being involved in service at the law school is one of the first steps to doing that.
Great, thank you. And then since we have another question, I'm going to direct this to Dean Hunter Schwartz. So we have a submission about whether experienced lawyers who wish to begin a second career in academia have to pursue such a career differently than newly minted JDs. So with a lot of years of practice, like 35 years of practice and 27 years in office, and an almost completed LLM degree, what would you say about this as being like a post-retirement second career?
So that's a really interesting question. I do think that law schools are increasingly looking for ways to bring practitioners into their faculties, more so than say 20 years ago. On the other hand, definitely I would encourage that person to finish the LLM degree and take up Dean Holley-Walker's suggestion that the person do some publishing. I think that would have a fairly significant effect. Recent publications. So even if the person published years ago, I would actually really encourage someone who wants to move from practicing into teaching to get out some law review articles and then for me, when I was thinking about academia, I also taught as an adjunct professor in addition to doing the other things. So I could see if it was as joyous as I thought it would be. It turned out to be better. But that would be the other thing that I would be thinking about for someone who's thinking about a second career in academia.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we ran a little bit over, so unfortunately, we're going to have to close out the program. So I just want to extend a huge thank you again to both Dean Holley-Walker and Dean Hunter Schwartz for joining us today and sharing their insight about how they got to becoming a dean and their paths in academia. So coming up, we have some more programs if you are interested. And in September, there's just a few short weeks. We have one on silencing the voice of self-doubt for our career advice series. We have some other programs that are coming up, and you can find all of those and more on ambar.org/careers. For more information about our Legal Career Center job board and our regular board, check their About page. And then before leaving, we really would appreciate if you completed our short survey. So thank you again to our speakers for you all to join, and then have a great day.